In 1928, a Dutch garage mechanic fixed a brewery manager's car so well that the man gave him money to start his own business. That mechanic was Hub van Doorne. The business became DAF. Within 60 years, DAF had absorbed what was left of Britain's entire truck manufacturing industry and had put its badge on a factory in Lancashire that once was the heart of British trucking. DF trucks are on British roads every single day, yet most people have no idea the company started in a brewery workshop in Eindhoven, or that it still builds trucks at Leyland in Preston today. Along the way, Hub van Doorne invented a gearbox that would end up in nearly 1 million cars, and that anticipated a technology now used across the entire automotive world. His company merged with Leyland in 1987, went spectacularly bankrupt in 1993, and somehow came back from the dead. This is the story of how that happened. Hubert van Doorne was born on the February 23, 1900 in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. The eldest son of a blacksmith, when his father died, Hub was just 12. The family's future fell on his young shoulders. He left school and learned metalwork in his father's forge, gaining the hands-on skills that would define his career. After the First World War, Hub worked as a chauffeur mechanic for a local doctor, then took a job maintaining equipment at the De Valk brewery in Eindhoven. There, his knack for solving mechanical problems quickly set him apart. The turning point came in 1928. The brewery's managing director, Aanhangwagen, found himself stranded when his car broke down. Hub repaired it single-handedly. Impressed, Huenges offered him a loan and free workshop space on the brewery grounds. On April 1, 1928, Hub opened a limited partnership named Commanditaire Vennootschap Hub van Doorne's Machine Fabriek. The business was modest at first, a small metalworking shop focused on welding and repairs for local firms. Hub ran the technical side, while his younger brother Wim, who joined soon after, took care of the finances and administration. This clear split of duties set the pattern for the company's management for decades to come. From the beginning, the partnership was formal. Municipal records and brewery loan papers list Huenges as the financial backer and co-founder, with the Van Doorne brothers responsible for day-to-day operations. Early company minutes preserved in the DAF museum record their address as the De Valk brewery grounds. The workshop's original sign and partnership deed still exist in the museum's archives. In 1932, with Wim now fully involved, the business was renamed Van Doorne's Aanhangwagen Fabriek, DAF for short, reflecting a new focus on trailers. 4 years later, in 1936, Huenges sold his share back to the brothers, leaving Hub and Wim in full control. The foundation was set, a family-owned company born from a mechanic's skill and a brewery manager's faith, ready to take on a changing world. By the late 1940s, DAF's ambitions outgrew the confines of trailer building. In 1949, the company entered a new era with the launch of its first complete trucks, the A30 and the A50. These vehicles were not just an incremental step, they represented a leap in technical capability. The A30, rated for a 3-ton payload, and the heavier A50, designed to carry 5 tons, both featured a distinctive 7-bar chrome grille and a cab-over engine layout. This approach maximised cargo space on a compact wheelbase, a practical solution for post-war Europe's narrow roads and tight city centres. Production shifted to a new purpose-built factory on Geldropseweg in Eindhoven. The plant's assembly lines could turn out 10 to 12 trucks per week, an impressive output for a company that had started in a brewery's workshop just 2 decades earlier. The scale-up was rapid. Early records show that DF filled orders not only for Dutch hauliers but also for the Ministry of Defence, supplying robust 4x4 and 6x4 models for military use. These contracts accelerated DF's engineering development, pushing the company to refine its chassis and drivetrain designs for both civilian and off-road demands. A key technical advance came with the introduction of the DS575 engine. This 5.75-litre turbocharged diesel, producing up to 165 horsepower, set a new standard for performance and reliability in mid-century European trucks. The DS575 would become the backbone for later DF powertrains, foreshadowing the brand's reputation for robust, efficient engines. The combination of in-house engineering, modern manufacturing, and a steady flow of orders established DAF as a serious player in the European truck market. The groundwork was laid for the next chapter, one that would see DAF take on even greater technical challenges and international ambitions. In the mid-1950s, Hub van Doorne's curiosity turned to a problem most automakers ignored: how to make driving simpler, especially for people who found shifting gears awkward or intimidating. Watching the belt-driven machines in his own factory, Hub imagined a car transmission with no gears at all, just a system of variable pulleys and a rubber belt. In 1954, he began experimenting with the idea, sketching designs and building prototypes in Eindhoven. The result was the Variomatic, a continuously variable transmission, or CVT, that allowed the engine to run at its most efficient speed while the car accelerated smoothly, without any gear changes or a clutch pedal. DAF filed patents for the Variomatic system in the Netherlands in 1958. That same year, the invention made its public debut at the A30 Motor Show in Amsterdam. Crowds gathered around the DAF stand watching a small four-seater glide forward and backward without a single shift. The press reported more than 4,000 orders placed during the show, a remarkable number for an unknown family firm. Contemporary newsreels captured the excitement, and Dutch newspapers dubbed the DAF stand the talk of the exhibition. By July 1959, the DAF 600 rolled off the line in Bourne, becoming the world's first production car with a belt-driven CVT. The Variomatic used two pairs of conical pulleys linked by rubber belts, automatically adjusting their diameter to change the drive ratio. There was no gear lever, no clutch, just forward and reverse. The system was simple, reliable, and surprisingly effective, especially in city traffic. Over the next 16 years, DAF built around 800,000 cars with Variomatic transmissions, including the 33, 44, 55 and 66 models, making the company a pioneer in automatic technology. The Variomatic's legacy stretches far beyond its era. Modern CVT transmissions in cars from Nissan, Honda and Toyota still rely on the same basic principles: variable pulleys and a flexible belt. Hub van Doorne's invention, born from practical observation and a willingness to rethink the ordinary, put DAF on the map as a company willing to challenge convention. The attention and reputation gained from the Variomatic would soon open doors to new partnerships and set the stage for the next phase of DAF's evolution. By the early 1970s, DAF found itself at a crossroads. The company's success with the Variomatic had earned it attention from much larger players, and new partnerships were shaping its future. In 1972, Volvo Cars took a 33% stake in DAF's passenger car division. This move was not just about investment. It gave Volvo a ready-made entry into the compact car market and access to DAF's innovative, continuously variable transmission technology. Over the next 3 years, Volvo steadily increased its share, reaching 75% by 1975, and assuming operational control of the Bourne plant, which would soon be renamed Nedcar. The last DAF-designed car, the P900, was released as the Volvo 343 in 1976. With this, DAF's era as a car manufacturer ended, and the company's focus narrowed to trucks and commercial vehicles. The split was more than a business transaction. It drew a clear line between DAF's past as a dual car and truck maker and its future as a specialist in heavy vehicles. The engineering team that had pioneered the Variomatic now concentrated on drivetrains and chassis for the truck division. Volvo, meanwhile, inherited the Bourne factory and the legacy of DAF's small car engineering, integrating the Variomatic's principles into its own lineup. The Nedcar facility would go on to produce over 1 million cars under various owners, but the DAF badge would never again appear on a new passenger vehicle. While Volvo was reshaping the car side, DAF's truck operations were drawing interest from overseas. Also in 1972, International Harvester, the American agricultural and truck giant, acquired a minority stake in DAF Trucks. Official records put that stake at around 10%. For DAF, the partnership offered a gateway to North American markets and the chance to collaborate on engine supply agreements. International Harvester gained a foothold in Europe and access to DAF's turbocharged diesel technology, particularly the DS575 engine that had already made its mark in European haulage. The arrangement lasted nearly a decade, ending in 1981 when International Harvester divested its shares during a period of internal restructuring. These ownership changes set the stage for DAF's next moves. The car division, once a source of technical pride, was now in Swedish hands. The truck business, streamlined and more internationally connected, began to look outward for new alliances. The separation allowed DAF to focus its resources on truck development, paving the way for future collaborations, including a merger in the UK that would reshape the company's identity once again. The road ahead would be defined by trucks, not cars, and by partnerships that reached far beyond Eindhoven. In February 1987, two companies with long but very different histories signed a deal that would redraw the map of European truck manufacturing. DAF, still rooted in Eindhoven but now focused entirely on trucks, merged with Leyland Trucks, the last major survivor of Britain's once mighty commercial vehicle industry. The new entity, DAF NV, split ownership between the Dutch parent and the UK's Rover Group, with a 60-40 share. This was not just a corporate handshake, it was a merger of engineering traditions, workforces and reputations. The Leyland name had been synonymous with British haulage for generations, while DAF brought a reputation for technical innovation and efficient diesel engines. The merger gave DAF access to Leyland's factory in Lancashire, a site with decades of truck building experience, and an established dealer network across the UK. For Leyland, it meant survival and a fresh injection of Dutch capital and technology. Trucks built in Britain now wore a new badge, Leyland DAF. The familiar blue and white swirl appeared alongside the red Leyland script on grilles across the country. This hybrid identity quickly became a fixture on British roads, from motorway hard shoulders to distribution depots. That same year, DAF launched its most ambitious truck yet, the 95 series. Developed in collaboration with Spanish manufacturer Inasa, the DAF 95 introduced a cab designed for driver comfort and safety with advanced aerodynamics for better fuel efficiency. Under the hood, the 95 series featured the 11.6-litre ATI engine, available with up to 380 horsepower and a 16-speed ZF gearbox. The cab's flat floor, air suspension and ergonomic controls set new standards for long-haul comfort. The 95 was clearly aimed at long-distance drivers. The impact was immediate. In 1988, the DAF 95 was awarded International Truck of the Year, an industry award never before given to a Dutch manufacturer. The judges praised its technical sophistication and driver-focused design. Orders surged, not only in the Netherlands and Britain, but across continental Europe. For the Leyland workforce, the 95 series was more than a new model. It was proof that their skills and factory could compete with the best in the world. Production lines in Lancashire and Eindhoven ran at full tilt, and the Leyland DAF badge became a symbol of renewed confidence in British manufacturing. Financial reports from 1988 and 1989 show a sharp rise in export sales, with the new 95 series leading the charge. Leyland DAF trucks began appearing in fleets from Scotland to southern Spain, their distinctive cabs and bold branding a visible sign of the Anglo-Dutch partnership. The company floated on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange in 1989, raising capital to fund further expansion and research. Behind the optimism, however, the new group faced challenges that were not yet visible to the outside world. The merger had brought together two proud workforces and two sets of management practices, but also inherited the financial pressures and market volatility that had haunted British truck makers for years. For now, though, the mood was buoyant. The Leyland DAF era represented a high watermark, a moment when a Dutch garage mechanic's legacy and British industrial muscle seemed to have found common cause, with the 95 series as their flagship. The story was far from over, but for a brief period the future looked secure. On February 22, 1993, DAF NV filed for insolvency at the Amsterdam District Court. The news broke across Dutch and British headlines within hours. At the Eindhoven headquarters, workers gathered in uneasy clusters outside the main gates, reading the morning editions of NRC Handelsblad and The Guardian. The word bankruptcy in bold type meant more than a financial crisis. It meant jobs, livelihoods, and the future of two nations' truck-building traditions were suddenly in doubt. Receivership meant that both the Dutch and British operations were now under the control of court-appointed administrators. The Leyland factory in Lancashire, once the pride of British manufacturing, now faced the real possibility of closure. In Eindhoven, thousands of workers waited for official word, fearing the loss of a company that had shaped the city's industrial identity for generations. The Creditor Committee's first report, issued in June, listed liabilities exceeding £1.1 billion, a figure that dwarfed the company's annual turnover. Assembly lines ran, but only just. Orders stalled as customers hesitated, worried about spare parts and warranties. Suppliers demanded cash up front. For many on the shop floor, the situation felt surreal. One week they were building award-winning trucks, the next they were reading about their own jobs in the business pages. No one could say what would happen next. The DAF badge, which had come to symbolise stability and inventiveness from Eindhoven to Lancashire, now hung in the balance. For thousands of skilled workers and their families, the stakes had never been higher. In the wake of DAF NV's insolvency, the future of truck building in both Eindhoven and Lancashire depended on bold decisions made far from the boardrooms of multinational giants. In May 1993, a group of DAF's Dutch managers, led by senior figures from the existing leadership, negotiated a management buyout. The deal, finalised on May 7, 1993, carved out the core truck operations from the collapsed holding company, allowing DAF Trucks to continue as an independent Dutch firm. The buyout was financed by a mix of local investors and a Dutch government recovery fund, with the aim of keeping production lines running and safeguarding thousands of jobs. Meanwhile, across the North Sea, the Leyland plant faced its own reckoning. British managers and local investors quickly organised a separate management buyout, creating Leyland Trucks Limited. The new company secured short-term contracts and parts supply by leveraging relationships built over decades. Both Eindhoven and Leyland operated on a knife edge. Cash flow was tight and every order counted. Stability returned in stages. In 1996, American truck giant PACCAR, owner of Kenworth and Peterbilt, announced its intention to acquire DAF Trucks. The deal was completed in October 1996, bringing much-needed capital and access to a global dealer network. 2 years later, in 1998, PACCAR also acquired Leyland Trucks, reuniting the British and Dutch operations under a single corporate owner. Press releases from PACCAR at the time emphasised their commitment to European manufacturing, with explicit promises to keep the Leyland plant open and invest in new product development. Under PACCAR, both DAF and Leyland Trucks regained their footing. Production at Leyland continued without interruption, building DAF-branded trucks for the UK and export markets. The survival of the Lancashire plant, once threatened with closure, became a symbol of resilience. By the end of the decade, the DAF badge, born in a Dutch brewery workshop, had not only survived bankruptcy but had become a cornerstone of British truck manufacturing, backed by the resources of one of the world's largest commercial vehicle groups. DAF's badge now leads the last major truck plant in Britain, a legacy shaped by Dutch ingenuity, British resilience and relentless adaptation. In an industry where giants vanished, a mechanic's workshop survived. Today, every Leyland-built DAF on UK roads is proof that innovation outlasts borders. The road ahead still belongs to those willing to reinvent. Share your thoughts on this journey in the comments below.